As it's getting sunset, I watch the bats go and say, please get all the mosquitoes away from me.
That's the new headline. Supervisor Ann Marie talks to bats.
That's right, I do. So we've actually brought a record of $40 million now.
40.
Back into Canton, 40.
Wow.
Yes.
14 million to 40 million.
And I just want to point out, so before that, 2 supervisors ago, the record was 5 million. So 40 million is close basically to our budget every year. And so we worked very hard. Well, I hope you know that, I've worked many years in the automotive industry. Mentors like Congresswoman Debbie Dingell, I work with her and she's brought so much back to Canton. We're so lucky that she represents us, but she's one of my mentors where you can see how she's worked across the aisle. And my favorite things to do, and maybe it's because of my engineering background and I was a project engineer for so many years, is I love, every 3 weeks I bring everybody together and we go over the 50 projects that we're working on. I hear all the details. It's just because I did it for so many years. It's one of my favorite things to do.
We have a very special guest today, right here at our studio. It's none other than Madam Supervisor Ann Marie of Canton Township. Thank you very much for taking the time. Madam Supervisor, you've been a Canton resident for 25 plus years. You were elected as a supervisor in 2020. I think when we asked some of the Canton residents the other day at the community park, they were of the opinion that you are known for leading initiatives like COVID management, securing almost $14 million for the community. But before we get into a little bit on your views on how things are and what is next, probably all the viewers here, including myself, we just want to know a little bit more about Madam Supervisor Ann Marie. Just if you can maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, if you can go back, because you have a very interesting background working at Ford, and then also running for public office, being a volunteer, and a lot of the things that we were discussing earlier. Mm-hmm. So maybe our viewers can get a sneak peek as well to understand you a little bit better. If you would like to share, please.
Sure. Well, I was, I think we had started born in the city of Detroit, where my parents and my grandparents also lived there. And then I grew up in Ferndale, Michigan. Okay. I went to Ferndale High School. And then I went away to become a pilot. I went to Western Michigan University. Wow. And I was going to be a pilot mechanic. So I entered into their courses, but flying is very expensive.
Right.
So at the time I was a waitress. Wow. So I worked part-time and I was in flight school, and I never made as much for as a waitress to pay for the flight. So I said, okay, I need to change this up. I think I'll go into engineering and then I'll have enough money to come back to flying one day.
Sure. Engineering has a lot of money.
Yes. I know. So I did fly. I almost got my private pilot's license. So I became a ground school teacher in flight. Nice. And I would teach ground school so people could take their tests. And I have about 120 hours. I did a lot of solo flights and everything.
120 hours.
120 hours of flight.
You were up there by yourself.
Yes.
How did that feel?
Oh, wonderful. It's when you're up there, it's just like floating. If you ever have dreams of floating. And then I also did some parachuting too. So I jumped out of planes and it's wonderful. You're all peaceful and you think you're going to have.
Wow. Madam Supervisor jumped out solo.
Yes.
Wow, she's the adventurous type.
I'm a roller coaster person. Yes. So my family, we love roller coasters. So yeah, and it was when you jump out of a plane, you think you're going to have all this air. Well, as soon as your chute opens, it's complete silence because you're going with the wind, and you watch the beautiful clouds and the scenery. And so I always love being up high. So what I ended up doing is I was married at the time and I had a child. And so I was working full time and going to school at night. And about that time in the Detroit area, jobs were hard to find. So we moved out to the East Coast and to Boston. And I enrolled at University of Massachusetts, Boston at night. And I went to school during the day. That was a little bit hard because everything was flipped because then I had a child. Correct. And working full time and went at night. Well, as I got closer and closer to my degree, I ended up, University of Massachusetts, Boston did not have 4 full years of engineering. So we switched to Boston University. I went to Boston University and I went full time and I finished my degree there.
I see.
Then because that love of flight was still in me, I started working for the Federal Aviation Administration.
In Boston?
In Boston,
okay.
Yes, in the New England region.
Wow, okay.
And I was a project engineer, and what I would do is I would travel to Massachusetts, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine, and we were revamping the system. The system, the FAA is a wonderful group because you think about it, you don't have planes just falling out of the sky.
Yeah.
And so you just, hundreds and thousands of flights each day. So I would climb towers and I would install antennas. So and I would go onto the Cape, and it was beautiful. I mean, you're up there again, you're up there 100, 200 feet in the air and just looking out over the ocean and up there with the birds and installing antennas. So it was a really cool job. I really liked it.
Nice.
But then I ended up, unfortunately, worked with Harvard University. I would type the papers of the professors as I went through school. So I really liked going to the schools still. So even though I was working for the FAA, I would still try to take some classes here and there. Well, unfortunately, I ended up getting a divorce, and I became a single mother.
Okay.
So I was a single mother for about 3 years, and I still had my family back here in Detroit. And I said, I need to come back to be near family to help me raise my son. So I came back and I moved to Canton, Michigan.
Okay.
And I've been there ever since. So I raised that son.
That's the 25 years now.
Yes. Wow. Yes. Yeah.
Very nice.
I was a single mom for about 6 years, and I was raising my son, and I got a job. It's interesting because I grew up in the automotive industry. So my dad, my father, my grandmother, my grandfather, my great grandfather, they were all auto workers, and they worked in the plants and the facilities. My grandmother actually was even a Rosie. So during World War II, she worked for GM sewing seats at the time. So it was really cool because there's a plaque of her at the airport down in Willow Run as her being a Rosie.
And you did mention that she still listens to podcasts at the age of 85.
That's my mother.
That's your mom.
My mother,
okay.
yes.
Wow.
Yes, my mother listens to podcasts, yes.
Nice.
Yeah, she loves them. But so I grew up next door to my grandparents, and that's why I knew I had to come back from Boston, because it was a wonderful childhood growing up next door to my grandparents, and I wanted my son to have that same option. So coming back here, my mother helped raise him, and that was
a good decision she made.
Yes,
we agree. Yes.
Yes, thank you.
So how was your experience at Ford? How did that happen? So
I said I'd never work in the auto industry because I watched my grandparents and my father and that. I mean, the auto industry is very cyclical, and you would, work, and then when it went down, you get laid off and you come back. And I said, I will never work here. My father actually took us to the plant once to see it. And I was a little girl. I remember walking into this big black plant. It was full of grease and dark. And I got to the entrance. I said,
it's the best image he gave you of the industry today.
He did. I backed up. I said, I'm not going in there. It's very different now.
It is.
I mean, I've worked in the plants since then, and it's been cleaned up. But then we're talking in the 70s. It was very different than it is right now. Correct. Now that it's like spotless.
It was more macho in 70s to have it more dirty, I think.
Yes.
On purpose, they made it more dirty.
Probably.
So I think that was the trend. More dirtier, the more hard work it showed.
Yes. But it also wasn't safe, too.
It was.
Because at the time, in the 70s, when my family worked there, my father worked there, it was, there was like a revolution in Detroit. There was the civil rights was going on.
Correct.
And so there was a lot of unrest within the plants, too. So that was a big experience there that hit home with me. And even where I grew up in Ferndale, and I was the last white street in Canton. I'm sorry, in Ferndale, and there was riots and fighting on my street as a young child. So I watched this, and I always, it scared me. I remember we had tanks going up and down our street during these times. And so it was very impactful. I would watch the older kids fight at school. And then even as we grew older, the revolution, what they call the revolution in Detroit, didn't just stop.
Right.
It wasn't just like the day that 47 people died. It continued through the 70s. Right. And so even at school where I grew up, when the kids in the high school, they'd end up with fighting, they would send us home in the middle schools. And so it was just a really bad, sad time. And I'm so glad that, we've overcome much of that. We still have some ways to go, but, so my childhood that was really what really, I think propelled me to work with diversity and inclusion and things like that.
Makes sense. How has Canton changed from then to now? Like, of course, overall, from an outside perspective, it's changed quite a bit. But you being at that time, at the inception of all that kind of slowing down and then the development starting from then until now, how would you see Canton change, the township itself?
When I first moved to Canton, it wasn't as built up as it is now. But actually, in the 80s, there was a vote taken, and the Cantonites at that time determined that they were going to allow the township to develop. Right. It was cornfields from Canton Center Road westward. And they decided that, so they took a vote twice and they said, no, we want it to develop. So a lot of the farmers started selling off their land to developers. And that's about the time it happened. When I came to Canton probably in the mid 90s, it wasn't like it is now.
I see.
And the development had started. I mean, I thought the township was run well at the time. I was a single mom, so it served my son and I well. And he went to school in Plymouth Canton schools and a good school system.
Started from there, basically. Yes. Understood.
Yes. So
why would you think that Canton today, I think, can easily boast of having diversity of different kinds? Like, it's got everything.
Yes.
All kinds of people there.
Yes.
And everyone's working together, living together in harmony. I think overall it just feels like it's a melting pot within the US. Like, that's how I see Canton Township. What, according to you, has made that? Or what brought that together?
Well, it's funny because they call the United States a melting pot, but I love this term I heard. We're more of a vegetable salad because everybody keeps their shape and their customs, and that's what's beautiful about it.
So Canton Township is vegetables and not melting pot.
That's right.
All right.
Yes, we love the diversity and we love the customs of everybody, and we want to keep that and learn from each other. And I think that's important. I think that's probably why Canton has grown how it has also.
But I'm sure there are so many areas in Metro Detroit area, so many cities. But Canton has this unique pool of people. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, when I talk to people that when they first come or people that have been there a long time, they say they love it. They love the diversity. Right. I mean, they really do. And I think that attracts more diversity.
Understood.
I really do, because they see it as a safe place. When I started working with Plymouth Canton Citizens for Diversity and Inclusion in the early 2000s with all of my friends from the different cultures and faiths, what you found before were people tended to isolate. The different groups just stayed on their own. While they might have done community service on their own, it's like, let's get together and start doing it together and learning about each other. Yeah. And I think that with that safety net and feeling that it was important. And even when strife started to come, wanted to come into Canton, we banded together and says, no, we're together and we're a community that wants to be together. And so, if you want to bring trouble, it's not going to happen here.
Fair enough. No, I think that's, like you rightly said, because of the fact that everyone feels secured and safe, it has brought more people to come to Canton Township.
Yes.
I agree with that for sure. Some of the things that when we, even at the community park, after we spoke briefly and then you had left, I was just asking around people because we were just kind of still shooting, if you remember. And some people actually told me that community engagement for them tops the list of why they like you. Second in that list, and probably it might be a surprise for you. This is I know I've not told you about this. This was my secret for the podcast. Second, they said, is your focus on public safety and sustainability. That came on number 2. This was not a big poll. It was just random with maybe about 10 to 15 people there. And the third one is interactive communication. This is what one lady said, I'm quoting. She encourages community interaction, often inviting feedback and providing avenues for direct communication. So that's what the residents like about how you've kind of done things from 2020. So as supervisor, you got elected in 2020, right?
As supervisor, yes.
And you're running for re-election now. So what are some of the priorities according to you facing this office? And what will you do to address them if elected?
So we've actually brought a record of $40 million now.
40.
Back into Canton. 40.
Wow.
Yes.
14 million to 40 million.
40 million, yes.
All right.
And I just want to point out, so before that, 2 supervisors ago, the record was 5 million. So 40 million is close basically to our budget every year.
Wow. And
so we worked very hard. So working at Ford and knowing technology, I was sitting in those rooms where I could see what was coming. And I approached the then supervisor and I said, we need to prepare our township for the future. We need to be part of that future and keep our kids here. And he was not interested. I said, okay, well, I'll just run against you then. Wow. And I did. But we've broken ground on so many projects. I'll have to say this. The Biden administration. So, I've been in with the League of Women Voters and done studies on education, all kinds of things for many years. And I have never seen so much money come down to the communities as I have in these last 4 years.
Wow.
And I knew that it was coming fast because actually the President Biden, he wanted to make sure it got to the communities right away, all through the country. Depending on your community size and the poverty levels or whatever, you got money. And it was just amazing. It's like, wow. Of course, at the same time, we were in COVID.
Yeah.
So a lot of it was because of COVID also.
Correct.
And so it was just, the opportunities we have not happened in decades.
Wow.
Decades. And so that I sat with our directors. I said, we've got to grab everything we can and make this better for the community. We have to. And it was really sad to hear that some mayors and that across the nation were saying, I'm not taking the money. It's like, wow, your people worked hard for this. And even though it's the federal government, they help pay into that, and you need to offer these opportunities. And we have been able to, so working with the county, the state, Representative Ranjit Puri, Senator Dana Paul-Hankey, Executive Warren Evans, Commissioner Melissa Daub, my board of trustees, we worked very hard, and we set our goals. We have a welcoming community, healthy infrastructure, healthy ecosystem, financial stability. We set our goals and what we wanted to see done. And then we just started watching, seeing what funds we could apply for. And that's been our priority.
Wow. So now if you get reelected soon, which we all hope you do, what are the top 3 priorities for you in the next 2 years? What is the big mission for Canton Township for Supervisor Ann Marie?
A couple of things. So the $40 million, we broke ground, but we have to finish the projects. I want to see them through and make sure they're finished. Warren Evans said something to me once. He says, the first 4 years, you kind of decide, you start to steer where you're going to go. The second 4 years, you start to make it happen. And then he's in his third 4 years. The third 4 years, you finish them. So he had a plan that way. I want to, because of this money that came down, you are kind of like tied into when you could have to finish it. So we have to finish it by the end of my second term.
You don't want to go into third term following that advice. You want to finish everything in the second term.
Yes, I do. And look on to other things. But one of the big things we're working on is, what I saw is, there's something called CAVNU, which was testing autonomous vehicles.
Okay.
And it was the governor announced it in August 2021.
Okay.
And it was supposed to test vehicles from Detroit to Ann Arbor, going on 94, and then coming back Michigan Avenue. Something happened a year later where they decided they're just going to go on 94 and back and forth. The issue is that I used to test some of my modules in vehicles on the test track at Ford Motor Company and Chrysler. And when you just use a highway to test autonomous vehicles, it's just like being on the track.
Correct.
You don't have real world stop and go, people running in front of you, cars pulling in front of you, bicycles, and that real world is missing. Another thing that's missing is that there are 8 communities between Detroit and Ann Arbor. So you have Detroit, Dearborn Heights, Inkster, Wayne, Westland, Canton, Van Buren Township, Ypsilanti Township. These communities would have benefited from that economic development, having that kind of a track or test track down that area. So I went to SEMCOG, which is a Southeastern Michigan Council of Governments, which I'm a chair on that now, one of the vice chairs. And I said, you guys have left 8-9 communities out in the cold where we could have really brought this community up. The 2020 census showed that Michigan is one of the top brain drain states in the country. Our kids grow up, they get educated, and they say, okay, I'm leaving.
Yeah.
And we have to stop that trend.
True.
And so this was part of that. So I've been working. I worked with these mayors and supervisors along this area. We now are calling ourselves the Michigan Avenue Innovation Network, where we're working with the University of Michigan in Dearborn and Ann Arbor, and we are starting to create this corridor.
I see.
So we got a grant, and we started the design, and we're actually working with the universities to try to get more money to finish that design, and then go out and shop it.
Yeah, so basically at some point that took an exit, you're trying to bring it back on the freeway now.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Makes sense.
Yes.
Very nice. And no, you're right, because if so many townships are benefiting from one single initiative,
yes,
I think that's a fantastic goal to have.
Yes. And we're not fiefdoms. I don't have walls around Canton. There's no walls around Northville. We have to work with our neighbors.
Yeah.
We have to lift each other up together, whether it's your neighbors, your family, or your communities. It's important.
Coming to your neighbors, a lot of your neighbors have very proudly endorsed you. That includes Brian Turnbull, of course, your immediate neighbor. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, you mentioned a little bit about Melissa Daub. You have the Van Buren Township Supervisor, Kevin McNamara. Mm-hmm. And recently, you had the honor of being endorsed by the Police Officers Association.
Yes.
Who is missing now, Ann Marie?
Oh,
Everyone's endorsed you, looks like. And I think when I was reading this on your profile and on your Facebook page, that should give the residents of Canton Township a lot of peace that they are having someone on the forefront. That's how I look at it. Otherwise, why would... This list is just 4 or 5, I said. I'm sure there are more than 10 or 15 if I were to read the whole list. Mm-hmm. And I think that goes to show the hard work that you've done from 2020 or even put the seeds prior to that. What is, according to you, an important reason for this kind of endorsement, the teamwork? How do you kind of make sure that all are working in unison for a common cause?
I think communication and empathy and listening is very, very important. You can't do anything alone in this world, and you shouldn't. You should always include people. That is very important. We all have to rise together or we fall together. Even if, your community next to you is suffering, that affects you.
Yeah.
In many, many ways, whether you drive through it or you just have, safety issues or something. So you really, really have to work together. I believe that for everything. That's number one.
Number one. Yeah. So teamwork, communication, and being empathetic, right? Those are definitely I picked up on.
Yes.
And then we were just discussing prior to the podcast a little bit as we were chatting offline on how a lot of some people see the way you see things and some people don't. Mm-hmm. That's how politics works. Mm-hmm. That's how everything works. For people who are a little bit on the fence with Supervisor Ann Marie, what message you have for them?
Well, I hope you know that, I've worked many years in the automotive industry, and I have mentors like Congresswoman Debbie Dingell. I work with her, and she's brought so much back to Canton. We're so lucky that she represents us, but she's one of my mentors where you can see how she's worked across the aisle, and she's spent time coming in the engineering from the automotive industry. I've worked with many people on the other side of the aisle, so I'm used to it. And that's important. You have to do that. You can't shut other people off if they're different from you. As a matter of fact, you should take a step in and learn about them. And I really think that's important. I've watched people who won't speak to people, family members that break up and say, there's a common thread between people no matter who you are. There's always that commonality, and that is important to find. Because even in my neighborhood, we don't agree politically, but we all still get together, to talk, and we're friends. And there's some areas where you're just like, okay, let's not talk about that.
Yeah.
But you talk about those common, whether it be your children or just that your roads are getting improved or things like that. So there's a common thread between human beings everywhere.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I hope that you're able to, win re-election and change some of their minds and thoughts with all the actions that you have lined up and planned for. We hope that too. I was just talking about one more thing. I had it here. So this is from Linda Brar. I don't know where she stays in Canton Township, but this is what she said. Her priorities include, of course, I have kind of... made it nicer, but basically what she was referring to was, I think, your vision for the 21st century sustainability through renewable energy, smart infrastructure development. Some of those are what she kind of likes. Mm-hmm. And that kind of resonates to what you just said, that because you worked with people across the aisle, you worked in the automotive industry, you have a much larger perspective on how things can be achieved. Would that be a fair statement?
Definitely. When I came into office, it's interesting. When I was just before I was a trustee, I called one of the trustees as a resident, and I asked about something, and the response I got was, well, shouldn't you be talking to one of your own people? And I said, what do you mean? And they said, well, a Democrat. And I said, you're supposed to represent everybody. Everyone, and that's important that you represent everybody.
Right.
And so I really think that you have to work across the aisle, and sustainability is important. If you think about, we have a landfill in Canton, and it's 3/4 full.
Yes.
And if we don't start slowing down, we're going to fill it quickly and have to, some people care about the sustainability part of it. And some people care about that if we don't slow down that filling, you're going to be going somewhere else and we're going to pay a lot more money.
Right.
So I have to talk to people and say, it's this. But sustainability is very important.
Yeah. I think that the landfill issue is really on a lot of residents' minds, for sure.
Yes.
Is there anything, once you plan to get re-elected, in case you win and you come to office again, is that one of your top priorities as well?
Yes. So I have a sustainability committee right now. It started out small. It includes kids from the high school. It includes the Chamber of Commerce. It includes the Canton Community Foundation and some of our residents. And basically what we're doing is one of the things that we started about 2 years ago was food composting.
Okay.
So it started out with 200 residents, then 400 participated. Now we're under 600 and 800 people. And we they bring their food scraps to certain locations in Canton, and we create fertilizer out of it. And we give it back to them at the end of the year. Right. So that's one thing. And then we're starting it in the schools and businesses, because businesses, they don't recycle and compost like they should. Correct. So that is our next step. That's our next phase right now. We're working with the businesses and the restaurants and the stores. My friend worked in a frame shop, and she said, we throw so much cardboard away. I take trips up to the landfill where they take me in the trucks, and I look down and even the man was saying, look, all these boxes, they should have been recycled. So we have to get people into that mindset. Once you start practicing things and doing things, it becomes a habit. So that's what we're trying to do, trying to incentivize people along those lines. We were building a 4th fire station down in the southeast part of Canton. It's going to be an alternative energy. It's going to have solar and geothermal. It'll be the first one in Michigan. Wow. So I'm very proud of that. And that's to show, look, we can do it. We have to move towards a sustainable everything we do. We have to get that mindset going.
Oh, that's fantastic. One of the other residents did mention also that they see you live in so many events in Canton. They're like, how do you do it? Supervisor Ann Marie. Like the other day we were at the Punjab Kedmela Festival. We saw you at the ILA event, where of course you met your hero. Or your Mr. Kali, Great Kali. How was that experience?
Oh, wonderful. So my husband is 6'4", but he was 7'3". Is that what you said?
Yes.
Oh my gosh. He's a very nice gentleman. It was very nice to meet him.
Yeah. Very and just nice. For the record, it was her husband who put the first seed for her to run office.
That's right.
That's true.
That's right.
So thanks to Mr. Husband. There's a lot of other questions and issues we can talk about, but I also want to get on to a little bit on the lighter side, just to ask you some questions, if that's okay with you. So let's do this. Whatever comes to your mind, don't hesitate or don't think too much. Just answer. Consider like a rapid fire kind of round. Okay. What's your favorite hidden gem in the city of Canton that most people don't know about, you think?
Well, I love my favorite part is the events. I love meeting people and talking to people. That's my favorite part.
Yes. Okay.
But I love the greenery too. My mother always said, she goes, you always seem to go towards the woods. I have woods in the back of my house, and I just love being near greenery and the environment.
Yeah. And whenever I talk to the Indian diaspora in Canton Township in general, they all like you so much.
Oh, they're wonderful.
And we appreciate you going to a lot of these events. I think you also go to the farmers market. Mm-hmm. You also go to, I forget the other event. You were there a couple of days back. It was on Facebook. You had mentioned you were there for another event. You're all over the place.
Yes. I love it.
But it's amazing that you get a chance to hang out with the residents and listen to them and see what they have to say, right? I think that helps. If you could switch jobs with anyone in the city of Canton Township for a day, who would that be and why?
Goodness. Oh my goodness. So you mean people that work there, or any of the residents too, or just
work part of this one? If you can trade jobs for a day,
probably our leisure services team, because they plan all the fun events. I loved it. So we're gonna have a first parade. Canton used to have a parade years and years ago, and it stopped. But we're gonna have another parade this year.
It's starting again.
Yes.
Nice. I like to be on that team. Parade team sounds
fun.
The
parade team, it is.
The landfill sounds so boring.
Yes, I know.
Parade team sounds fun.
You have to take care of the trash too, but
exactly.
Great parades.
If your city had a theme song, what would it be?
Oh my goodness.
Any song, any theme song that you like?
Any
motivational song?
Staying Alive by the Bee Gees.
Okay. That's a good one. Where's your go-to place to relax after a long day?
Oh, home definitely. And I like to go into the backyard and just rest.
And just be alone with your thoughts.
The forest. I watch it as it's getting sunset. I watch the bats go and say, please get all the mosquitoes away from me.
Okay, so that's the new headline. Supervisor Ann Marie talks to bats.
That's right, I do. My husband always says, "What?"
So now, obviously, the next question: who's your superhero? Is Batman?
Yes.
Duh. Okay.
As long as he kills mosquitoes.
Yeah. Batman's primary job is to kill mosquitoes. Right. Okay, what's a little known fact about your role that might surprise people? Anything in your role that you do as supervisor that many people don't know about? Or it's like, I wish you come and sit in my chair for a day or for an hour and then you kind of see how it is, which might surprise people. Anything part of your job that you can share?
Oh, there's so many things. One of my favorite things to do, and maybe it's because of my engineering background and I was a project engineer for so many years, is I love every 3 weeks I bring everybody together and we go over the 50 projects that we're working on. I hear all the details. And it's just because I did it for so many years. It's one of my favorite things to do. But also, I mean, while there's a good part of it, there's also the sad part of it. I mean, there's things that happen in people's homes, that Correct. I hear about, and I think a Boy Scout asked me once, what is what don't you like? What's the hardest part of your job? And I think the hardest part of my job is when something bad happens to somebody, and unfortunately, that does happen. And it's not always in the newspaper, when I know that the police are fired on a certain run for something that is very sad. That worries me. I feel very sad.
And when you go back in the evening to your family, how do you disconnect? Because there's a lot that's going on. It's an high octane job at the end of the day. Yeah. You know some things that the residents don't know, that the world will know maybe in 2 days. At the same time, you're working to, firefight in a particular place to get the situation. When you come home, how do you disconnect from that?
I usually don't. That's my husband's complaint.
I see.
Yes, I usually don't. It's hard to, because it's funny. Somebody came out to me and they said once, "So this is a 9 to 5 job." I said, no. It's a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week job. So at any time I can get a call about anything. They're very good though. They really usually only call me if somebody's been hurt or something, or if it's going to hit the press and they want me to know, just to let you know, Supervisor, this just happened, in case you see it in the press or the press calls you. Because sometimes they'll call me and say, "You want to comment on this?" Right. And so I think, but they're very good about that. Not a lot of bad things happen, which are good, but it's just, I think I don't turn off. I do know a mayor, one of my mayor friends, he says he has a police scanner that he listens to. I'm like, oh my God.
Wow.
So he hears like everything they're doing. I said, no.
Is that even allowed?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You can get a police
perk.
Yeah.
Being the supervisor, actually, you can have a police scanner.
Oh, anybody can actually.
Oh, anybody can.
Oh yeah. You can get a police scanners. Yeah. And listen to everything. And so, because I'll have people call me, "What's happening at Beck and Den?" I was like, I don't know. And I don't need to know unless something, they're taking care of it, because I just said, you got to turn that off, Bob. You just have to turn it off.
Wow.
I said, how do you sleep? Yeah. And I do like watching at the end of every day, I watch comedies.
Nice.
That helps, because it just
kind of sets your mood up a little bit. Yeah.
Yes.
I think the comedies do help.
They do.
Because they keep you for like 10 minutes. They take you to a different place.
They do. Yeah.
And then you come back to reality and you feel much better.
Yes.
With everything.
Yeah. Situation comedies.
I do the same thing after a long day at my work. So I agree with that.
Yes.
A lot of small businesses, entrepreneurs are starting to open, whether it's the restaurants, whether it's the food side, whether it's other stores. A lot of that is also coming into Canton Township. Yes. Is it like, for example, there is this pizza chain that I heard, it's called Pizza Twist. Mm-hmm. I think it's the first location of Michigan that opened in Canton Township.
Yes.
They could have chosen anywhere, but they chose Canton Township. Yes. I can give you multiple examples like that. What, according to you, is the reason? Is Canton Township doing something to attract these kind of entrepreneurs and small business owners?
Well, it's interesting you say that. So during COVID, one thing, Wayne County did a study, probably when we were like at the tail end of 2022, and they looked at the retail in various areas before and after COVID, or before and as COVID was coming down. And they found that actually Canton Township actually accelerated still in retail, where a lot of stores closed in various other areas. But for some reason, there's a vibrancy around Canton and businesses. I have people calling me all the time saying, "Is there something open on Ford Road? I want to go there." Yeah. But as soon as something is open, it's caught right up. And even Cherry Hill Village, the Canton downtown at Cherry Hill Village, which we're building, there are people calling all the time.
Wow.
So there's a vibrancy there. I don't know what it is, but I think it's very successful. Even during COVID, you drive down Ford Road in restaurants, when you could start going with the masks, they were full. So even people would go in there and eat, even though we were all in masks. So I think that it's where the people are, and it offers a lot of different flavors, different cultural tastes and things like that.
Any extra incentives or something that make it policy-wise easy for entrepreneurs to come in Canton? It's pretty standard.
Yeah, we haven't had to have any.
Nothing.
No, I know they used to offer them years ago, but it's
nothing.
What happens is that if someone doesn't take it, someone else does. There's 5 people lined up behind them.
Understood.
Yes.
Wow, that's a good situation to have.
It is a good situation, yes.
It is a good problem to have, actually.
It is.
So as we wind down, just a couple more questions. The first one is, a lot of young women look up to you. What an amazing career you've had in both corporate and also on the public office side. If they are wanting and aspiring to get into public service, what would you say to them? Or what message, or what should they do? And what would you say to motivate them to actually take this on? Because I think we need more young people to come into public service and do the required changes in the coming years. Would you agree?
Yes, definitely get involved.
Yeah.
I mean, that is really important. Get involved. I've been with the League of Women Voters for 30 years. So that is a 100-year-old group where the women have gotten involved. They won the right to vote in this country for women. And I mean, I just talk about smart women. Oh my gosh, the wisdom that I've learned, and so that's important. But there's various groups you can get involved in, and get involved in school, take government classes, volunteer in a campaign. That's where you learn a lot.
Wow.
Going door to door, making phone calls, or just seeing how a campaign works. That's another thing. Also stay current, learn about, watch the news, watch various factions of the news, not just one station, because you can definitely it's funny because like when I watch a debate on TV or something, I'll change the channels to see what the different newscasters are saying. Very different. So be very rounded. Yes. And, because even right now during election year, artificial intelligence has played a role, which can be a scary role sometimes.
Correct.
Sometimes there's a lot of misinformation out there. So make sure that you really look at, find some valid news sources that you can listen to. But, just definitely being involved in volunteering, the people that volunteer. I love volunteering. I get a lot out of volunteering. I mean, it's just not just saying, oh, I'm volunteering, but it fills my heart, just doing things like that. And that is really important. So like right now we have a lot of young people started working with, there's a facility in Van Buren Township, which is bringing radioactive waste in. And the young people are just crying out. I mean, they signed petitions right away to try to stop it.
I see.
And so, find a cause that really fits you. You're never going to find something that's 100% behind you.
Correct.
But, find something that fits in with what you like and work with it. There's different political parties. There's different, like Sierra Club for environmental. So it depends on what you like. That's really important, to find something that really speaks to you. And like I said, it doesn't even have to just be one organization. You can do 2. That's a lot of help. But
I think what you rightly said, getting involved in some capacity in a campaign as a volunteer will open your eyes.
Yes.
To what are the blessings and the curses to be in public office, right?
Yes.
And to serve people, and how people want a change, and to understand their needs and hear the voice that they are saying. I think that's a fantastic advice for folks who want to get into this. And November is coming. Everyone's aware. Everyone's looking forward to it. What is Supervisor Ann Marie looking forward to in November?
The day after, my birthday is November 6th.
November 6th. Okay.
So election day is November 5th.
There you go.
So I'm looking forward to my birthday.
There you go.
Yes.
That was the exact question. Who talked about November 5th? I was referring to November 6th. That was the actual question. A trick question. No, but November 5th, what are your thoughts? And November 6th, what are your thoughts?
November 6th, it'll be like, it's over. No matter how it does. Right now we're knocking doors. We're making phone calls. We're doing mailers. We're out talking to people.
Nice.
And that's the important part. Thank goodness the weather is not bad, because in 2020 it was like snowing at this time. But I just, we're really working hard, after work. And so you kind of have the full-time job, and then you have the office hour job, but then you're out there. And So we're really, really working hard and trying to reach the voters. And
yeah, Michigan is a big state for both sides.
Yes.
So I'm sure everyone's trying to educate the voters in whatever capacity they can.
Yes.
But it's interesting to see how, because last election, Michigan, 10,000 votes. It was this close.
Yes.
So a lot depends on the state.
Yes.
No, but I think you guys at whatever level, whatever capacity are doing the best you can, I'm assuming, at the moment.
Yes. And when you talk, like earlier, you spoke of endorsements, and I have, like you said, many endorsements, and those are important because those are different organizations that
Correct.
reach out to people. So I've been endorsed by the MEA, the UAW, the ASME, the Police Officers Association in Michigan, the iron workers, the steel workers. So what's nice about that is when you get the laborers, when you get endorsed by them, they send publications out to their people saying we've endorsed these people.
Correct.
So that's the beauty of working with so many people, as you start spreading out. And that's what young people can do also. They could start working with these organizations and see how they work with the different political candidates.
I can keep talking to you, Supervisor Ann Marie, for hours. But
me too.
I know you are very busy, and thank you for taking the time to come here and share with us.
Thank you for doing this. Thank you. For
a lot of the things I kind of knew looking at your, you have your own webpage and a lot of the accomplishments and everything, and people can read that. But what we didn't know about is, Supervisor Ann Marie watches or wishes Batman is working with the bats. We didn't know a lot about that. So, no, jokes aside, thank you again. I know you're very busy. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you very much for doing this. And I really appreciate your time and hope to see you at many more of our events.
Absolutely. Thank you again.